Living in the developed world, we take for granted the availability of fresh, clean and safe drinking water and the ease of sourcing it. We see it as a basic human right to have running water in our homes, and more than half the world's population, almost 4 billion people, now enjoy this level of water access. But 35% of the global population only has access to microbially contaminated water. Picture a rural family in the developing world having to travel as far as 1 kilometre to the nearest well or river in order to collect water of questionable quality and carry large vessels back to their home. Despite significant progress, there are still 748 million people without access to an improved drinking water source, 43% of whom live in sub-Saharan Africa. Furthermore, it is increasingly recognised that water from improved sources is not necessarily free from contamination, with new global studies estimating that 1.8 billion people use a source of drinking water that is faecially contaminated. Every year, 1.5 billion episodes of acute diarrhoea occur among children under 5, contracted through drinking microbially compromised water and killing 2 million children. In general, water treatment at the point of use reduces diarrhoea more than water treatment at the source, as the time for possible contamination to occur is reduced. Increasing the coverage of piped water, however, is expensive, so point-of-use water disinfection methods are employed. Boiling is the most common of these methods, but this relies on the cost and availability of fuel. A cheaper alternative is solar water disinfection, otherwise known as SODIS. The SODIS programme is an initiative from the Swiss Federal Institute of Aquatic Sciences and Technology, EAUC, and is a direct contribution to the Millennium Development Goals of the UN. The SODIS method of disinfecting water utilises plastic bottles filled with initially microbially contaminated water, which are subsequently exposed to UV light from the sun for about 6 hours. This simple process is effective in destroying disease-causing pathogens, but the time taken for total disinfection is dependent on the UV intensity of the sun, and there is no visual way of telling when that point in time is reached. Over 5.8 million people in around 30 countries utilise the SODIS method, but this is less than 1% of those without access to an improved drinking water source. An indicator for SODIS technology could help to improve the trust in and hence a widespread global uptake of the SODIS method by millions of people, significantly improving their quality of lives.
To ensure the effective use of SODIS throughout the developing nations, we've been working towards a range of simple, inexpensive, colour-changing indicators which can be placed on the SODIS bottles. All of our initial testing was done in the lab using solar simulated light, but through collaboration we were able to take our indicators out to the University of Cadiz in Spain and test them under high-intensity sunlight alongside solar water disinfection trials, which provided us with an independent assessment of the success of our indicators. So we've developed 3 types of indicator, all of which change colour when exposed to a sufficient amount of UV light to allow for water to be disinfected. So 2 of our types of indicator are one-use disposable indicators. They're both highly coloured to begin with, and we have them as stickers which can be peeled off and placed on the SODIS bottle as so. The SODIS bottle can then be placed under the solar simulator here, or in the third world under sunlight, and left until the water has been disinfected. Once there has been sufficient UV dose to allow for disinfection of the water, you can see here that the highly coloured indicator becomes colourless. We also have a third type of indicator which starts off with very little colour and with sufficient UV dose becomes highly coloured. This third type of indicator is a reusable indicator because when brought in from the sunlight and left overnight, it will revert back to its colourless form. This then means that the indicator can be used over and over again, which again brings down the cost of the SODIS indicators. So we've been able to quantitatively measure the change in these indicators in the lab, but you can see here that the difference between the starting and the finishing colour is extremely striking, so is highly discernible to the untrained eye, which means that the end users can see clearly when their water is safe to drink. So for more information on our indicators, you can find it on our research group's website.
Hi, I'm Andrew Mills. I'm a Professor of Materials Chemistry at Queen's University Belfast and leader of the research team on indicators for the solar disinfection of water. The technology works, and now what we've got to do is scale it up and produce indicators at less than 1 penny each, preferably much less than 1 penny each. All concerned are signed up to the idea of rolling out the technology to the developing world almost at cost, so that the indicators are as cheap as possible and price is not a barrier to their implementation. With this in mind, we're in negotiations with a smart label manufacturer about a low-cost license, and we're also carrying out scale-up trials, the initial results of which appear to be very promising, in as much that we do appear to be able to produce these indicators on a large scale and at a very low cost. Distribution is our next concern, and with this in mind, we are talking with the Swiss Federal Institute of Aquatic Science and Technology, EAUC, who started the SODIS scheme and who've got great connections with the charitable organisations that work in the third world and which would be able to help us distribute the indicators and help with the SODIS scheme. We're also aware that the ideas behind the technology can be of use to the developed nations. For example, an indicator of solar disinfected water would be useful to hikers and the army. But also we think that if we modify the technology, we can actually make sunburn warning indicators which will also have a ready market. We have other solar-related technologies that we think we can bundle all together and actually spin out a company. So we're exploring that, because the spin-out company would be able to generate wealth and help support our efforts with regard to the third world. Finally, I'm delighted to say that Queen's University Belfast is actively and fully supportive of all our efforts, not least because one of their main strategies, is to address global challenges of merit. And it doesn't get more challenging or more worthwhile than trying to help provide many millions of people with clean drinking water.
Living in the developed world, we take for granted the availability of fresh, clean and safe drinking water and the ease of sourcing it. We see it as a basic human right to have running water in our homes. But until the entire global population can enjoy this level of water access, we hope to promote the practice of SODIS as a point-of-use water treatment to provide safe and clean drinking water for everyone. We believe the solution is a disposable indicator of UV dose, and we've developed a number that were able to produce a striking colour change when exposed to sufficient sunlight for the SODIS method to disinfect water. These indicators, therefore, can be used to aid established users and enhance the uptake of the SODIS method by helping to improve confidence of the user, therefore promoting the expanded use of SODIS by the estimated 1.8 billion people drinking faecially contaminated water.